Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I am streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. I hope that everybody is having a great start to their weekend. Hi Amrit, hi Sanjay. Now I know that the camera is not working. That's why I'm a little bit late starting this class. I tried to get that working, but something's going on with the driver and I don't want to troubleshoot it right now. So you will not be seeing my face, I think, in this class, but that's fine because you should be focusing on the task 1 line graph that I will be showing you in a little bit anyway. So you don't really need to see my face. I know it's a nice thing to have, but I'm sure that's not why we're all here, so hopefully. All right, so I'll try to get it going for the next class. I'll try to figure out what's going on with that camera driver, but for this class, you will probably not see me. All right, but you'll hear me, and we'll definitely be looking at this line graph about transportation. Again, this is a members chat class. Of course, to participate in the chat, you have to be a member of the channel. You can also join us at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Welcome, Mr. Rahul Writing. Hi, lovely Yadav, Rashika, Pooja, Amrit. Good to see many members in the class. That is fantastic. Again, our websites, they look like this. This is the general one here. You can click that big red button here to join the premium IELTS package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access, and the general IELTS website has writing for the general exam. Of course, task 1 is really different for general and academic. Academic is like a table, a line graph, bar chart. And we are a British Council IELTS Test Registration Center and certified agents, so you're in good hands with us. General IELTS Task 1 is like a letter or an email, so quite different. So for General IELTS writing, definitely check out this website, General IELTS, gieltshelp.com. And for the academic IELTS, it's this blue background here, aehelp.com, where you can get lots of help for your writing there. So definitely check that out. All right. So let's hop back to our lesson plan here. We've got this code still going on, audio 9, for that 20% discount. However, we did actually just release a new speaking video. So if you do want to see my face at some point today, you can check out that new speaking video that we just released with a candidate from China. And you can use this discount code on our websites, better9, for a 20% discount, okay? So check that out. All right, if you have any questions, send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com. Now, classes today, writing task 1 for members firstly, and hopefully we'll also have a chance to do a bit of questions and answers for our members today as well. So let's see if we have some time for that at the end. And then we have speaking part 3 for everyone coming up after this class. That will be in roughly about 2 hours, just a little bit less. No classes Sunday to Wednesday, that's usual. And then we've got lots of live classes starting on Thursday and then Friday, Saturday. Of course, again, to get all of our HD videos, just go to the website and join our premium package, IELTS package. We will have this special class on May 15th, so take note of that in your calendar. that will be on a different platform. And one of the reasons why we're, by the way, using this platform lighthall.co is because it's designed for live stream teaching, and it doesn't have a lot of the issues that YouTube has. So unfortunately, YouTube live streaming does have some issues like latency, cameras not working, etc., etc. So Lighthall is designed for live teaching, and you'll see that it's got some functions that are really cool. Like you can actually speak to each other, audio speak, using Lighthall, not just chat. So we're going to try that out on May 15th, okay? And we'll be posting this link that you see just right here. So we'll be posting that link let's see. Yeah. So we'll be posting that link on our YouTube community board, and you'll be able to click on it. It's kind of a long one to copy. I get that. All right. So let's get into IELTS writing task 1. So writing task 1 is 20 minutes. Okay. So you want to spend 20 minutes on this task. Definitely spend 20 minutes. Okay. You have to know what you're doing. You have to use that 20 minutes wisely so that you write a good essay. Especially for those high band marks. Sanjay, even with ultra low latency, there's about a 6-7 second delay with YouTube. With Lighthall, there's 0 delay at a higher quality stream. So it's definitely the better tool for this kind of situation, and it's new, so we'll test it out. We'll give it a shot. All right. Let's read this. So I'll go through the steps of task 1. We'll do this together, members, okay? And then we'll go through it step by step and write a nice high band essay, okay? First step, of course, is read the question. So let's do this together. Read with me. The following graph shows the average number of German commuters traveling each day by different means of transportation. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, awesome. So we've read this. Okay, so it's German commuters. Hopefully you know what the word commuters means, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world. Don't panic. You still have the graph, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we have our line graph here. Okay, now looking at the line graph, we see that we have the number of commuters here. Okay, that's your y-axis title. Okay, and then down here we have the years. Okay, that is your x-axis. Oh, look at that. I got more space where my head would be. It's kind of liberating, I think, to have it this way for now. Okay. Hi, Tiame. And hi, here, Tlanarlia over in General IELTS. It's good to see you there. Okay, so this is our x-axis. This is our y-axis. We're paying attention to those. And of course, here we have the number of commuters in millions. Okay, so we have 0, 3 million, 6 million, and 9 million. All right. And so just like how I'm looking at this graph right now, you want to carefully observe this class. Okay. Amrit, I'll do my best to have the camera working, but as I said, it's a driver issue, and I'd rather not troubleshoot it right now over the course of half an hour. So don't worry about it, okay? All right, focus on the class. It's more important. And that's what you want to do in IELTS too. Stay focused, everyone. Stay focused. So here we have the years, and we have the year 1970, and then we have 1980, 90, 2000 kind of in the middle there. And then we have 2010, 2020, and 2030. So we want to notice a couple interesting points here. First of all, we've got intervals of 3 million, okay? It's called an interval. Interval is the equal distance between these measures. So we've got intervals of 3 million, all right? And here we have from 1970 until 2030, which is basically 60 years. Okay, so we've got 60 years of data. Now, of course, currently we're in 2022. We're somewhere here, right, on this chart in actual time. So all of this data is projected. Okay, projected, writing with a mouse. I'll be writing with my keyboard here in a second, don't worry about it. So this is projected data, right? We want to keep that in mind. And then down low here on this graph, of course, we've got some other key pieces of information. We've got car, bus, and train. So these are the three types of transportation that this line graph is reporting on. Okay, so we've got car. This is our car here. This is the bus, and then here we have the train. Okay, so we've got those three distinct modes of transportation. Okay, now, of course, when you're doing the IELTS, this is going to be much, much faster. Welcome, Selena. This is going to be much, much faster. You're going to make these observations nice and fast because you know what you're doing. And then you are ready to write the introduction. So when you write the introduction, you use the question. Use the question and use the graph for more detail. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. All right, so here again you have the question. The following graph shows the average number of German commuters traveling each day by different means of transportation. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. All right, so here we go, students. Now I'm going to paraphrase the question and add more detail. That's what you need to do for high band scores, okay? So you don't need to say the given because it's given that it's given, okay? So this line graph, instead describe what kind of graph it is, all right? And Sanjay, I see that you're doing some writing there, which is great. Mr. Rahul Preet, same thing. It's good, you've got a jump on me, which is great. Okay, I'll take a look at those in just a moment. So I'll do my paraphrasing as well, all right? So the line graph depicts, there's lots of ways to say show, the mean number. Another way to say average is mean, kind of like mean, like grr, mean. Okay, so the mean number of German commuters, no real other way to say commuters, traveling, going every day, daily, by three types of transport: car, bus, and train. Notice how here I'm giving that more detail. Okay, so car, bus, and train. The y-axis here, it's good to report the axis because it's kind of unique. So the y-axis shows these numbers in millions from 0 to 9 million with intervals of 3 million. And the x-axis shows the data from 1970 projected all the way to 2030 over a 60-year period. Okay, so notice all that detail. Okay, take a look at the original introduction or to the graph, because basically the question is an introduction to the graph, right? So they're kind of quote unquote giving you the introduction here. The following graph shows the average number of German commuters traveling each day by different means of transportation. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So here, with added detail, with more detail, I've written this line graph depicts the mean number of German commuters going daily by 3 types of transport: car, bus, and train. The y-axis shows these numbers in million from 0 to 9 million with intervals of 3 million. And the x-axis shows the data from 1970 projected all the way to 2030 over a 60-year period, hyphenated because it becomes an adjective, 60-year period. Okay? All right, so that is my introduction to my line graph. Okay? All right, Mr. Rahul Preet. So this is kind of one of the great parts of being a member of our channel. We can take a look at your writing in a little bit of detail, and this is what Mr. Rahul Preet writes. The linear graph illustrates the mean number of German travelers in millions commuting daily via 3 different modes of transportation. We can just go transportation, it's not plural there. Car, bus, and train from 1970. Don't write till, it's a little bit, till is more colloquial, it's more like everyday language. Until is more academic or more professional type, okay? So use until, Rahul Preet. Okay, 1970 until 2030. All right, that's quite good. So you didn't refer to the axes, which is fine. I gave a little bit more detail. I gave the intervals of the y-axes because I think it's kind of interesting to note for the reader, in this case the examiner, that we've got these intervals of 3 million from 0 to 9, right? So I figured that would be good to note, but you know, you don't have to. I think it's good to do it if you want to make sure that you're getting a high mark, but it's all good. All right. Let's see what Sanjay has. So Sanjay writes, the line graph compares the changes associated with the figure of travelers. Figure is kind of strange. Figure usually refers, Sanjay, to the entire graph. So with the number or amount of travelers in Germany, ranging from 0 to 9 million, not millions, over the period of 6 decades between 1970 and 2030. Yeah, that's not bad, okay? Maybe a little bit more detail. Now, careful with the word travelers. Travelers and commuters are not exactly the same in meaning. That's why I didn't paraphrase it that way. Travelers are people going anywhere. Commuters are people going to work, going to school. It's a little bit, it's that daily trip that everybody takes. It's a little bit different from saying travelers. Travelers can be misunderstood as people going on vacation or to different countries. So careful with that. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at what Amra has written. Okay, so a bit of feedback. I won't be able to get to everybody, but I'll take a look at a couple. So the linear graph is okay, but everybody should know that it's a bit better to say line graph. A linear graph is not necessarily this type of graph. This graph does fall under the linear graph category, but there are more types, okay? So the linear graph depicts the mean number of German commuters in millions from 0 to 9 million going daily via 3 different types of transportation: car, bus, and train from 1970 to 2030. Okay. All right, good. A couple of differences between your paraphrasing and mine is I use the word projected here. So right away I'm showing the examiner that I realize that this line graph is showing the future or predicting the future, not just our current time. Okay. Also this word intervals of 3 million, it's a nice piece of information because it lets the reader kind of visualize the graph a bit clearer. Okay. So those are good points to pay attention to. All right, and now comes the overview. And for the overview, we're going to use the graph, of course, a little bit more. So what is the overview? The overview, I'm going to take it down here. Okay, so overview is the main feature of the graph. And you can often see the question asking you that, right? So here in the question it says, report the main features. And that's kind of what the overview is. So the overview is the main feature of the graph. And I just want to remind you students, it's not necessarily the most and least. Okay. A lot of candidates tend to really just focus on most and least. But it's not necessarily the most and the least, okay? So you have to try to go above and beyond that, okay? All right. Rashika, Amrit, Pooja, write the overview because you're first on my list to look at the overview and to review your overview, okay? So I want to be fair and kind of switch up so that everybody gets a bit of feedback. So let's take a look at the line graph and see what we can identify as the main features, okay? All right, so firstly, yeah, here in this line graph, I mean, let's be realistic. Definitely, we can see that car is the most, okay? And we can also see that bus and train are kind of comparable. They have different patterns. So bus decreases over the time period. Trains increase. Okay. And overall, we can see that here, if we were to add these numbers together, right, we'd have 2 plus 4 plus 5. So we've got about 11 million in 1970 for commuters. And then here we have 3 plus 5 plus 9, right? So that's 14 plus 3 is 17 million. So for the overview, I want to recognize all of this information that you've got cars as the most popular mode. You've got trains as an increasingly popular mode. Okay, both of those are increasing. And bus is the only one decreasing. We've got 11 million commuters in 1970, which is projected to increase to 17 million by 2030. Okay. So I'm looking at all of that information, and then I'm going to report on that in my body paragraph more specifically. So for my overview, you know what? Your overview doesn't have to be just one sentence. Your overview can be multiple sentences. Here my overview is going to be fairly descriptive to give a clear idea to the examiner. What are those main features? Okay. So I'm going to write my overview. Everybody else, all the members, everybody watching, write your overview, and then we'll make a comparison. There's different ways to do this. There's different ways to score a high band score. It doesn't have to be the same, but we probably should be somewhat on a similar page here for this information. So clearly, there's my overview. Basically everything I showed you on the graph just now, except written clearly. Okay. So clearly, here when I say clearly automobiles are the most popular mode of commute over the entire period. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about this piece of information. So that's very clear. Okay, there's no touching here. At every single point, at every year, it is the highest number. Very clear. Okay, and then my second point, okay, is that and both cars and trains increase in use over the course of the 60 years. So I'm basically telling the reader that, hey, we've got an increase here and we've got an increase here. That's very clear for us. Okay. All right. Then I give a contrast here. Notice this word, conversely. Okay. Conversely, the use of buses decreases. That's all I say. And notice how I use the present tense here, because you have to be very careful with your use of tenses in this line graph, since we have all three time frames. So we have past, we have present, and we have future, right? Okay, so if I want to refer to all of this, I have to use the present simple or present perfect, which has the ability to show a general overall concept, or a concept for present perfect that started in the past, continues into the present, and into the future, right? So I have to pay attention to those grammar forms, right? And then I give a little bit of extra detail, and this is basically where you get that band 9 level. Okay, so this is where that band 9 comes from, where you go that extra step. You go that step that those band 7 and band 8 students will not achieve, where you go that extra step. So I say, furthermore, there are 11 million commuters total in 1970, and this number is expected to increase to 19 million by 2030, right? So this is where I took that extra thinking, that extra step to add together these numbers here to get that total of 11 million, okay? And I added together these numbers here to get that number of 19 million. Okay? And that's where that's coming from. All right, these start and finish points. Okay, Sanjay says, thumbs up. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so just showing you very clearly what is that difference between a band 7, band 8 versus a band 9 essay. It all comes down to content. When you're looking at those high band scores in your writing, so band 8, band 9 especially, it all comes down to content. At band 8, band 9, you pretty much must have clear grammar, good vocabulary use, and the difference will be the content, so what you are putting into your essay. Now, of course, that also means that if you're making mistakes with your spelling or your grammar or your words, if you have good content, like if you pay attention to that, then you're still going to get a better score, a much better score, okay? All right. As promised, I'll take a look at some other students' writing here. So this is the overview by Rashika. So these are overviews. These were the introductions. Okay. And this is what Rashika writes for an overview. I think you've got a piece missing there, Rashika, but we'll see. We'll get there. Okay, so Rashika writes, at first glance, Rashika, always put a comma in after your leading expression. So at first glance, it is clear that the popularity, here, let me switch up my colors and then you can see what I'm doing here a little bit better. So, okay. At first glance, it is clear that the popularity, let's not put a comma there when you say it is clear. So at first glance, it is clear that the popularity of using cars among commuters, you don't need the, takes an upward trend throughout the given years, and preference for bus as a method of transportation shows a downward pattern. Not was, Rashika, because it is, right? This is what I mean, Rashika, about your tense. You have to be careful. 2020, 2030 is still happening, okay? So you have to use present tense for that. Transportation shows a downward trend. You're basically referring to the graph. Yes, Rashika, I see that you're still completing it, and I'll come back to it, okay? So far, just those points. Pay attention to your verb tense form, all right? Okay, Mal, let's take a look at what you have here. Okay. This is Mal. Mal, always capitalize your first letter. While. So, while the scale leaned steadily with a contestant increase in car favor. That's a little bit of an awkward use of the English language there. Mal, definitely do not use language on the IELTS that you're not sure is accurate. Okay, so while the scale leans steadily, this is very confusing for me. Okay. While the graph shows a constant increase in favor of using cars, okay, comma, because you have a complex sentence with your dependent clause in the first half. So the same cannot be said about bus, as the German population turns slightly away from it as a means of transportation. So again, not turned, but turns, okay, because it's also present and future, turns slightly away from it as a means of daily transport. Yeah, so Mal, I can see that you're trying to get a bit fancy here, but be careful. I wouldn't really get fancy in task 1. You just have to write a clear essay. It's an expository essay. You're explaining and expressing what is in the graph. Don't try to be fancy, okay? Instead, aim to be clear, okay? So that's my advice here, Mal, is do not try to use fancy expressions for task 1. Your goal here is much more to write a clear essay. I feel like you're trying to be a little bit fancy with the way that you express yourself here, Mal, and it's actually working against you. It's creating a lot of confusing information, okay? All right, expository essay. Remember, it's an expository essay. If you're going to try to be fancy, you would want to do that in task 2, but definitely you want to make sure that it's accurate, okay? All right. Pooja, let's take a look at what you've written here. Okay. So Pooja writes, overall, it is evident that daily commuting by car will remain the most popular form of transport over the 60-year period. Yeah, so careful here, Pooja, because you're writing will, okay? And that means the future, and then you say will remain the most popular form of transport over the 60-year period. It sounds like we're going 60 years into the future, so like 2080. That's a bit confusing there for me, okay, as your examiner or marker. Definitely put a comma after overall here, all right? So, I would do it this way, Pooja. Overall, I think you have a good start, but you don't need to overcomplicate. So overall, it is evident that daily commuting by car will remain the most popular form of transport. And I would actually put a period there. We've already said in the introduction that it's a 60-year period, Pooja. So will remain actually tells me, this word remain tells me that it is the most popular form of transport, okay? And then you write, in contrast, community, it's not community, but commuting. Okay, so it's the wrong word here. Careful with that. Commuting by bus is forecasted to decline. Okay, yeah, that's fine. What about train? Nobody's mentioning trains. Trains are kind of important. We only have 3 forms of transport, and trains increase, right? So we'd want to mention that, all right? Okay, so let's get into the analysis. Having said all this, the analysis are 4 to 5 key points from the line graph in order of most to least important, okay? So here, when we have our body paragraph, okay, your body paragraph is basically your analyses, okay? Analyses, analysis, plural, okay? So here are the analyses. You want to identify, let's say 4 to 5 important points in the graph to discuss in the essay. And then, of course, use the overview as the thesis, the guide. Okay, let me show you what I mean. So don't reinvent the wheel yet again when you're doing your analyses. Just use what you already observed and used in the overview. So remember, in the overview here, I start by saying automobiles, cars, right? Another way to say that. Are the most popular mode over the entire period. And then here I say both cars and trains increase over the course of the 60 years. So it makes sense to look at that first, right? It's my guide in my overview. So here, my point number 1 is this popularity of cars or automobiles. And then my point number 2, okay, is the increase of cars and trains, right? That's my point 2, right? MATLAB is asking a question. Is there any format or template for task 1 and task 2? Good question. That's what I'm showing you right now, MATLAB. So basically the structure and what you need to include is the template and format. Otherwise, you have to think and you have to put together the information yourself. You can't just use like pre-written sentences, okay? So keep that in mind, MATLAB. So you can't use pre-written sentences and get a good score. Keep that in, that's really important, okay? So use the structure and good content for high bands. Know the different applications of line graphs, pie charts, bar graphs, tables, diagrams, flowcharts. Okay. There is no template to get a high band score on the writing section. Okay, so if you use templates, just to give you one more point on that. So if you use template sentences, the best score that you will get if you write perfect English is 6.5. Okay. All right. Amrit says, you skipped my writing. All right. And you gave me a super chat donation. Amrit, I don't see your writing. Where is it? I see. Oh, is that your overview there that you're talking about? Okay, let me check. I think this is what you're talking about here, Amrit. Let me take a quick look at it, okay? And then we'll get back to the analysis here. So here we go. Amrit writes, overall, it is clear that the most popular mode of travel is car over the given period, while the number of commuters using trains increases in this given period. Okay, Amrit, yeah, quick feedback on that. You've got an awkward connection here. So overall, it is clear that the most popular mode of transport is car over the given period is fine. While the number of, so while is wrong here. I would write similarly to cars. Or I would even write and similarly to cars or automobiles. The number of commuters using trains increases in this given period. And then here I would use opposition, Amrit, while the number of people riding the bus decreases. Okay. That's where you'd show opposition. So the biggest mistake here, Amrit, is using while incorrectly. You're showing opposition where there's actually a similarity. Okay, so be careful with that. Okay. All right. Step 1, analysis, cars. Step 2, cars and trains. Step 3, buses. Okay. And so step 3 will be buses here. And within step 3, step 4 here in 2015, I would discuss where buses become less popular than trains. And then step 5, I would explain this difference of 8 million more commuters in the future. Okay, that would be my step 5. So let's go through step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're going to see this more clearly, okay? So let's start with step 1, which is, of course, cars. Cars being used by around 5 million commuters in 1970, and used by 9 million at 2030. Okay, and this, now you see how here it's like flat, and then here it's up, and then and then a little bit and then meh. Okay, like those sounds. Definitely don't really go into that level of detail. It's a gradual, or it's a steady increase, okay, over the 60-year period with slight variations. So you can say with slight variations, but I mean, I wouldn't go, okay, and then it's consistent, and then it increases, and then it sharply increases, and then you're going to run out of words, and it becomes really confusing for your reader too with that level of detail. So you don't need that level of detail. You just want to say that it's a steady increase, okay? All right, so let's start with that, okay, the analysis, the body paragraph, okay? So looking at the graph in more detail. So looking at this graph in more detail, 5 million, we can use numbers for simplicity in task 1. 5 million Germans used their car for commuting daily in 1970, and with slight variations, this number rose to I don't want to say rose to, because it's the future, right? It's 2030. So, and with slight variations, this number has increased steadily and is expected to reach 9 million by 2030. So fairly tricky language here because of that past, present, future scenario. And if you do get this type of line graph where you have the past, the present, and the future, you have to be really careful. Notice how here I'm using the present perfect to show that that continuum over time. So starting in the past, into the present, and into the future as well, right? Okay. All right. So looking at this graph in more detail, 5 million Germans used their car for commuting daily in 1970, and with slight variations, that's an additive clause, so I want commas around it, and with slight variations, this number has increased steadily and is expected to reach 9 million by 2030. Okay, you can put a comma there, maybe not necessary. Okay, so now that comparison to trains, right? Trains also increasing. All right. So trains appear to have a comparable rate of increase to cars, just with lower numbers. Okay, so here what I'm talking about is the increase of use of trains is comparable. Okay, so it's not like one is like this and the other's like this. Okay, they're almost parallel. They almost show a parallel pattern. You can even say that, parallel patterns. Okay. MATLAB, usually task 1 is 3 to 4 paragraphs, and usually task 2 is 4 paragraphs. Okay, so task 1, you got the introduction, the overview, analysis, and for band 9, I do recommend a 1-line summary, which can be considered a 4th paragraph. And then in task 2, you've got your introduction, body 1, body 2, and the conclusion. Okay. All right, so we've got, yeah, these kind of parallel, right? It's up to you whether you want to go that distance. All right. Now here we've got 2 million and here we've got 5 million. So here we basically have from 5 to 9, and from here we have 2 to 5. So with a difference of 1 million, it's almost the same rate of increase. Okay. All right. Let's add that. Okay, so trains appear to have a comparable rate of increase to cars, just with lower numbers, starting at 2 million in 1970 and finishing, and will finish, will be, simplify it, at, what was it, 5? Yeah. 5 million in 2030. Okay, sure. So now we've got that comparison as well. Okay, so I've basically taken these parts of my overview so far. Let's look at this. So clearly, automobiles are the most popular. Check. I've talked about that in my analysis over the entire period. And both cars and trains increase in use over the course of the 60 years. I just finished that. Okay, so now I'm on to this point here. Conversely, the use of buses decreases. So I want to express that in more detail. Okay. All right. So here, looking at buses, okay, buses start at 4 million. They're more popular than trains. But then they gradually decrease, and at around 2015, okay, they become less popular than trains, and that's expected to continue to 2030, at which time they will reach roughly 3 million. So they drop in popularity by about 1 million commuters overall, right? So that's what I want to report here and put it together with some nice words, okay? All right, and always use words that show opposition. So if I've used however, I've used conversely, I want to use something like nevertheless, okay? Opposite to cars and trains, buses gradually, because it's gradual, it's not a steady, it's not a fast, it's a gradual. Buses gradually lose popularity over the decades. Decades means 10 years. Okay, because you can see that the graph is showing on the x-axis decades, right? You've got 70, 80, 90, 2000. So those are your decades. Okay, so it's steadily decreasing in popularity over the decades. Okay. Over the decades, and then here I can say eventually becoming less popular than trains in 2015. Okay. And then here, one more sentence. So by 2030, I'm starting my sentence with a time expression, so I follow it with a comma. So by 2030, the use of buses is expected to be 1 million less commuters each day than back in the 70s at 3 million passengers. Okay, So simply this endpoint here of where buses kind of end up. And now I have a good analysis of this line graph. Now, what I want to do is I want to review this. Okay, so you always want to review when you finish a paragraph. So again, keep that in mind, okay? It's an important point. After you finish a paragraph, in task 1 or task 2, always take a second to read and review it, okay? So here, looking at this graph in more detail, 5 million Germans used their car for commuting daily in 1970, and with slight variations, this number has decreased steadily and is expected to reach 9 million by 2030. Trains appear to have a comparable rate of increase to cars, just with lower numbers, starting at 2 million in 1970 and will be at 5 million in 2030. Opposite to cars and trains, comma, buses, 1S, gradually lose popularity over the decades, eventually becoming less popular. Popularity, popular, repetition of words. I want to paraphrase that. Less preferred. Okay. Than trains in 2015. By 2030, the use of buses is expected to be 1 million less commuters each day than back in the 70s at 3 million passengers. Okay, good. Now I've made a couple of slight corrections. It reads better. I'm on the right track. Okay, and now I can include a simple summary. Okay, summary is not a conclusion. It's not new information. I'm not making assumptions. I'm not making inferences. I'm simply reporting an interesting piece of information that is clearly evident from the graph. Now let's keep in mind that that's that difference of 8 million commuters. Okay. All right. In summary, while the preference of using cars to commute becomes or stays the most popular during this time period, there is a change in the mode of public transportation from buses to trains. In addition, the number of commuters is showing a trend towards 8 million more in 2030 than in 1970. All right. So there we go. That was kind of that last point of my overview. Okay. All right, Rahul Preet, I will take a look at it, and I wish you the best of luck on your exam tomorrow. I do see what you're writing there. Okay, I keep peeking at what you're writing. I'm yours as well, so don't worry. Keep writing, and even if I don't check, if I don't get to checking everybody's writing, it's not the end of the world. Keep writing. It's still great practice since you're in the class, right? Okay, let's read the whole essay now. So again, here's the graph. Okay. The graph is the average number of daily commuters in Germany by car, bus, and train. This is hypothetical data. It could be more or less. It doesn't matter. We see that car is the most popular, going from 5 million to 9 million over the course of the period. We've got our x-axis showing that we've got the past, we've got the present, we've got the future. We have to pay attention to that. We've got trains and buses here in the middle showing kind of opposing trends. We're observing all of that, okay? And here is our introduction, overview, body, and summary. Okay, so this line graph depicts the mean number of German commuters going daily by 3 types of transport: car, bus, and train. The y-axis shows these numbers in millions from 0 to 9 million with intervals of 3 million. And the x-axis shows the data from 1970 projected all the way to 2030 over a 60-year period. Clearly, automobiles are the most popular mode of commute over the entire period, and both cars and trains increase in use over the course of the 60 years. Conversely, the use of buses decreases. Furthermore, there are 11 million commuters total in 1970, and this number is expected to increase to 19 million by 2030. Looking at this graph in more detail, 5 million Germans used their cars for commuting daily in 1970, and with slight variations, this number has increased steadily and is expected to reach 9 million by 2030. Trains appear to have a comparable rate of increase to cars, just with lower numbers, starting at 2 million in 1970, and this will be at 5 million in 2030. Opposite to cars and trains, buses gradually lose popularity over the decades, eventually becoming less preferred than trains in 2015. By 2030, the use of buses is expected to be 1 million less commuters each day than back in the 70s at 3 million passengers. In summary, while the preference of using cars to commute stays the most popular during this period, there is a change in the mode of public transportation from buses to trains. In addition, the number of commuters is showing a trend towards 8 million more in 2030 than in 1970. Ooh, all right. That is going to get you a high band score for sure. Okay, Rahul Preet. Let's take a look at what you have. Here we go. Let's do this. This is going to be fun. We'll really take a deep look at Rahul Preet here. Rahul Preet says, I got an exam tomorrow. I need a bit of help. Tell me what's going on. Okay, Rahul Preet. Let's have a look here. And don't worry, everybody. We'll have a little bit of time for questions as well. So get your questions ready. Okay, and then you've got a second body paragraph here. I'm not sure why that is, but I'll take a look. Okay. All right. Okay, so Rahul Preet, let's do this. All right. So Rahul Preet writes, in detail, the number of daily commuters. It's kind of one number, Rahul Preet. So the number of daily commuters using cars for commuting remains almost the same at 5 million. We don't count with an S for millions or billions. At 5 million from 1970 to 1980, but it increases gradually later on to 9 million over the next 5 decades. Not by the next 5 decades, it's over the next 5 decades. When looking at trains, there was a 1 million increase in the number of commuters from the year 1970 to 2000. Before not being plateaued, but before plateauing. Before plateauing over the next decade. Later on, just later, there was a sharp increase in daily travelers from the year 2010 at the end of the year 2030 in daily travelers from the year 2010 to 2030, reaching 5 million. Buses gradually decrease. I would not write that as a new paragraph. So it doesn't have to be a new paragraph, Rahul Preet. That can just be the same, okay? We're looking at all three modes of transportation in one paragraph. Ghazi, welcome to our group of members. Send me an email so I can hook you up with those perks, the videos, and the exams and everything, okay? All right. Buses gradually decrease. Again, remember, Rahul Preet, this is past, present, future, so you want to use the present tense here. Okay. Decrease, not the popularity, but in popularity, with 4 million daily commuters in 1970 to 3 million at the end of 2030. Okay, Rahul Preet, overall not bad. So it's a pretty good piece of writing. I think it's still at around a band 7 level writing. Okay. The one point that you're missing, Rahul Preet, that I definitely would have included for sure, okay, to make sure that you're getting a good band score, is this crossover. Whenever you have this type of situation in the graph, you need to explain that one becomes more popular, one supersedes the other, one exceeds the other, one bypasses the other. So there are lots of different ways to do this, but you definitely have to mention this component. That's always an interesting piece of information. Just think about if you're working for civil engineering in Germany or in the public transportation sector, you definitely want to know when your country needs to have more train lines and trains than buses, right? So this type of intersecting data is very, very important. Okay. Even if you wrote it in the overview, Rahul Preet, like you say that at one point trains become more popular, you still want to give that detail in the analysis by saying that it's at 2015 and the number is at about 3.5 million, right? So 3.5 million. So you still want to give more detail on that for the examiner, okay? So when the question tells you to report the main features and make comparisons where relevant, this is definitely a relevant comparison that you want to spend a little bit more on, okay? Amrit is asking, why am I not using was and were in task 1? Amrit, I explained that several times in the lesson, but it is an important point and I'm happy to explain it again. Whenever you're thinking about the verb tense, so if it's past, present, or future, you have to look at the timeline of the graph, right? So if the graph is in the past, like this, and you're referring to the information, then here you can use past tense, okay? Past tense verbs. So here, there were 2 million people riding the train. There were 4 million people riding the bus in 1970. But here, we have about, roughly there, we have 2022. That's present. Okay, so I can't write about that as the past because that's happening now. Okay, so currently here, there are roughly 3 million people riding the bus. There are roughly 4 million people riding the train. Okay? And in this graph, and you get these kinds of graphs sometimes, I've seen these in the IELTS exams before, and they do this on purpose because they're trying to see how well you're able to use your different verb tenses in English, okay? So here you have a clear future as well, okay? So 2030 has not happened yet, okay? That's the future. So here, at this point, there will be 3 million people riding the bus, okay? There will be 9 million people using their cars, okay? So you have to be able to use the future there when you're referring to the actual information. If I'm talking about the graph, then the graph is always present. Okay? Take note of that, students. So graph is always present tense. When you refer to the graph, always use present tense. I'll show you an example. The graph shows that there are 9 million people expected to use cars. This is passive, that's why I'm using expected, because it's passive voice, right? Expected by the people doing the survey. Expected to use the cars in 2030. But when I'm referring to the graph itself, I'm always using present tense, shows, okay? Because the graph is now. We're always looking at the graph now, okay? That's right, Ghazi. There are 3 timelines in this line graph. There's the past, there's the present, and there's the future. And you can definitely use the present perfect, Ghazi, as I have, okay? So I used the present perfect because it shows the past continuing to the present and expected to continue into the future. Okay. All right. I hope your day is going awesome, Ghazi, in Newfoundland, by the way. Okay. So, any more questions? So you can ask me some more questions, members. If you have another question, I've got a couple minutes, and then I'm going to use a bit of extra minutes today to figure out the camera driver. Hopefully I can figure that out. Okay. Good, Rahul Preet. Yeah, you can use that sentence, Rashika. I see what you're writing there. So let me grab that sentence. So this is Rashika talking about that important point in the graph. Let me just hop down here, Rashika. So Rashika writes, little correction here, Rashika, but it's almost. Okay, almost correct. So Rashika is writing about this piece here, and it's an important piece that I was talking about where there's this change that's happening. Okay, so Rashika writes, in 2015, the popularity of using trains superseded, good, because it's past, right? We're in 2022, superseded using cars, not the, okay, and will be raised to 5 million 2030, and will increase, is clear, to 5 million by 2030. It's not increasing in 2030, it's increasing by that time, Rashika. Okay, if it were in 2030, it means that all of that increase would have to happen in this 1 year, but it's not. It's happening all the way from 2010 to 2030 here, right? So it's by that time, not in that time. Okay, by that time is this line. In that time would be this line. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. All right, students. Good. Hi, SK Gamer. Welcome to the class, everybody. We are just about finished up. So again, remember, for lots of help with your writing, visit us at aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. And our academic IELTS website looks like this. Just simply click this red button to join our premium IELTS package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access, and you can use a couple of discount codes that we have going on. Use the code BETTER9. It's from our newest speaking video that we just released. It'll get you a 20% discount, okay? So BETTER9. For general IELTS, same idea. Click that blue button, or sorry, blue button, red button in the blue square, to join our premium IELTS package. And then just like with the academic IELTS, you get access to our computer-based practice exams, interactive course. We've got tons of lesson videos and lots more. So check that out, okay? It's a great way to learn, study. You get apps for your phone and mobile as well. So you can learn from your phone as well. We'll be using these websites in the upcoming class for speaking practice also. Okay. So lots of goodies there, and it doesn't cost a lot. It's way cheaper than sitting IELTS 2-3 times. So definitely check it out. All right, everybody. So that's it for this task 1. I will do my best to fix the camera and figure that out for the next class, okay? And notice how, everything's got its advantages, disadvantages. So I didn't have my camera on in this class, but the nice part of it is I was able to pay a little bit more attention to the class itself. So I think you realize it probably went a bit smoother than when I've got video going as well. But I will get the camera going for next class, okay? So thank you, Sanjay, Rashika, Rahul Preet, all the best in your exam tomorrow. Let us know how you did when you get your results. Hopefully I'll still see you next class. Next class will be speaking part 3, everybody, about buildings, okay? So make sure to hang out for that. And I will see you in about 35 minutes, okay? Roughly 35 minutes. From now, I will see you. Okay, see you shortly, everyone. Bye for now. I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from Victoria. Much love to all of you.